At 77, I was exiled to a nursing home by my own son so that his in-laws could take over my house. He saw me as a helpless old man, a problem to be managed and forgotten. From my tiny room in that depressing facility, I orchestrated the secret sale of my home and chose the perfect moment to announce it, right in the middle of the party he was hosting for his new guests. The morning was damp, like most of my days since Miriam had left. 77 is the age when every day begins with new aches and ends with thoughts of those who no longer sit beside you. I, Obadiah Lamb, have grown used to being alone in this two-story house in Henlopen Acres that Miriam and I bought back in the 80s, a home overlooking the bay, which I still try to maintain despite my arthritis. That morning, as I made my oatmeal, a silver SUV pulled up. It was my son, Ingram, his wife, Beatrix, and my grandchildren, Terrence and Alan. Daddy, Ingram smiled strangely. We thought we'd come to visit. I eyed the 6 suitcases they were unloading. We planned to stay for a while, he said, avoiding my gaze. We're renovating, remember? I didn't remember. Within 10 minutes, my quiet house was filled with their voices and smells. Beatrix began purging my refrigerator, exclaiming over expired cheese and horrible sausage. Ingram, meanwhile, made a pronouncement. Papa, Beatrix and I will take the master bedroom. You'll be more comfortable on the first floor, so you don't have to go up the stairs. I felt something inside me clench. That bedroom was where I'd slept with Miriam for 45 years. Her pictures were still there, her books. I'm quite comfortable in my bedroom, I replied calmly. There's a first time for everything, Beatrix chirped. Ingram, tell your father we're concerned for his safety. I realized it was useless to argue. Moving into the small, cramped guest room took me all day, not because of the stuff, but because every item in my old room was a memory. By that evening, the house was no longer mine. Beatrix had redecorated, moving my photographs and hanging modern paintings. At dinner, they discussed repainting the kitchen. That awful yellow looks so outdated, Beatrix said. But it was Miriam's favorite color. I objected. Obadiah, that was 30 years ago, she rolled her eyes. My home, my life, was being methodically erased. The following days were an ordeal. My routine was dismantled. My morning coffee was replaced with herbal tea. My favorite TV shows were deemed too loud, and my cherished collection of old records was relegated to the garage as old junk. Beatrix even threw out my photo albums, claiming they took up too much space. We're just trying to clean up, Ingram said when I confronted them. It's hard for you to manage a house this big. My small room became a repository for the life they were purging from the rest of the house. Everything changed one rainy Sunday, 2 weeks after they arrived. A quiet knock on my door revealed Alwyn, my granddaughter. Grandfather, she whispered, I came to warn you. I overheard Mom and Dad. Mom's parents are selling their house and moving here. A chill went through me. Where do they plan to put them? I asked, though I already knew the answer. That's why I came, she said, her voice trembling. Mom and Dad think you'd be better off somewhere else. A home for the elderly. They've already found a place in Lewis and put down a deposit. My own home, and they were evicting me. When do they plan to tell me this? Tonight, she said. They're waiting for the whole family to be together. That evening, Ingram called a family council. I sat in my old armchair, watching them. Dad, he began, we're worried about you. You're finding it hard to live alone. I thought you were worried about where to put Beatrix's parents, I said, unable to hide my sarcasm. We found the perfect place, Beatrix interjected. Pine Grove is a real community for active retirees. I knew she was lying. Pine Grove was the cheapest nursing home in the area with a terrible reputation. I'm not going anywhere, I said firmly. This is my home. If you don't go voluntarily, Beatrix said with ill-concealed irritation. We'll have to get a guardianship. At your age, the testimony of a couple of doctors would be enough. They had threatened to take away not only my home, but my right to control my own life. I realized I had lost. Okay, I finally said. I'll go. 3 days later, I was driven to Pine Grove. The facility was a dreary, gray brick building. My room was a small, bare space. We'll be visiting you, Ingram said awkwardly before they left. Alwyn hugged me, whispering, I'll come visit you, grandfather. I promise. When they were gone, I sat on the edge of the bed and let myself cry. The first week at Pine Grove was the worst of my life. The food was bland, the atmosphere depressing. On the 10th day, as I was picking at something they called chicken stew, I heard a familiar voice. Obadiah Lamb. I looked up and saw Ferris Dunham, an old friend from my days at the Postal Service. Ferris, what the hell are you doing in this almshouse? I asked. My loving daughter decided I belonged here. He grinned bitterly. We talked for hours and I told him my whole story. When I finished, he asked, and the house belongs to them now? No, I shook my head. It's still registered to me. Ferris rubbed his chin thoughtfully. You know, Obadiah, if the house is legally yours, you could do whatever you want with it. Like, for instance, sell it. Sell it? The thought had never crossed my mind. Are you suggesting I sell the house out from under their noses? I asked, a spark of hope igniting within me. Exactly, Ferris smiled. I spent 30 years in a bank. I know how these things work. You have every right. The very next day, Ferris introduced me to his nephew, Horace Dunham, an energetic and shrewd real estate agent. Mr. Lamb, Horace said confidently, you underestimate the appeal of real estate in Henlopen Acres. We'll find buyers willing to make any kind of offer. He devised a brilliant plan. He would arrange day trips for me from a nursing home, officially as part of a socialization program. In reality, he would pick me up and we would conduct secret showings of the house while Ingram and his family were out. The plan sounded like a spy operation, but the part of me that yearned for justice was thrilled. Our first showing was with a couple who wanted to gut the house. It was painful, but also liberating. I realized home is just walls. The real memories live inside me. Then we met Thornton Barrington, a trim, kind-eyed man of about 55 who had recently sold his hotel chain. He wasn't looking for a property to flip. He was looking for a home. Horace told me your story, he said, shaking my hand firmly. I admire your determination. He was not only interested in the house, but also in the guest house clause Ferris had suggested. You know, Thornton said, when I was a boy, my grandfather lived with us in a small annex. It was a magical time. I like the idea of having someone in the house who knows its history. It gives a place a soul. After the inspection, Thornton made an offer that exceeded the market value by 15% on the condition that he would build me a guest house to my specifications where I could live for life. 2 weeks later, all the paperwork was ready. I signed the purchase agreement, and the house was officially sold. The deal would be registered in 3 working days. That weekend, Ingram visited complaining about work and casually mentioning they were having a party at my house on Saturday for Beatrix's father. Already moved her parents in, have you? I asked. He looked guilty, but nodded. I smiled to myself. The timing was perfect. Horace and I adjusted our plan. On Saturday, we would arrive at the party where I would announce the news in front of all their guests. At exactly 2 o'clock, Thornton, Horace, and I pulled up to the house. Ingram opened the door, his face a mask of shock when he saw me. Papa, what are you doing here? Hello, Ingram, I said calmly. I've come to visit my home, or rather, my former home. Allow me to introduce myself. Thornton stepped forward, extending his hand. Thornton Barrington, the new owner of this house. There was a deafening silence. Beatrix appeared, her face aghast. Is this some kind of joke? Ingram finally sputtered, his face flushing with anger. You couldn't sell the house. You're in a nursing home. A fully capable citizen with the right to dispose of his property. Horace finished for him, presenting a copy of the registered deed. It's all perfectly legal. The ensuing scene was a chaotic mix of shock, anger, and denial. Beatrix's parents looked on in horror as their new living situation evaporated before their eyes. Guests began to arrive, walking into a silent, tense living room. This isn't over, Ingram hissed as we prepared to leave. I will fight for this house. You have 30 days to find a new place to live, I replied calmly. Unlike you, I'm not forbidding you to take all your things. As we drove away, I saw Ingram standing on the porch, his face contorted with anger and fear. The circle had closed. The next day, I moved into a beautiful, spacious apartment Thornton had rented for me, overlooking the ocean. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of freedom. He also connected me with a financial advisor. At 77, I was suddenly rich. I made a list of things I'd always wanted to do. A trip to Europe, a cruise, photography courses. Alan began visiting me every weekend. I'm so happy for you, grandfather, she said. You deserve this. Construction on the guest house finished in early June. It was perfect. Thornton threw a small housewarming party. Ingram and Beatrix were not invited. Standing on the terrace of my new home, surrounded by friends who were genuinely happy for me, I felt an extraordinary peace. The bay stretched out before me, the sunset painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, just as it had 40 years ago. At 77, I had finally learned to put myself first. I had learned that it's never too late to start a new chapter,